My sister Sari made sure everyone at her wedding knew I was the family failure. She placed me at the forgotten table, introduced me as her struggling artist sister, and had her friends offer me pitying looks all night. But when a handsome stranger leaned in and said, "Let's give them a real show," everything that followed turned her big day into my ultimate comeback. If you've ever been humiliated for chasing a dream that others don't understand, hit that like button. Subscribe if you believe that the universe has a funny way of delivering justice. Because this story proves that sometimes the biggest insults lead to the greatest triumphs. The grand ballroom of the Dharmawangsa Hotel was a sea of shimmering gold and white orchids, but my world had shrunk to a small, wobbly table in the darkest corner, right next to the service entrance. Table 19. The table for miscellaneous relatives and my sister's single, unprestigious friends. I'm Rady, and for most of my life, I've been the family's artistic disappointment. A stark contrast to my perfect, practical sister. I was just trying to become invisible when a deep, calm voice spoke right beside my ear. "Let's give them a real show." I turned, startled, to find a man in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. He was tall, with kind eyes and a quiet confidence that seemed to absorb all the light in the room. "I'm sorry I managed to say, your sister," he said, his gaze flicking across the room to where Sari was holding court. "Spent the entire cocktail hour telling my uncle how she worries about your unconventional career path." He slid into the empty chair beside me with an easy grace. "I'm guessing you didn't ask her to be your publicist." He was right. I could see Sari now, laughing with her new husband's family, her hand gestures punctuated in my direction. She was probably telling them the same old story about her poor artist sister who lives in a tiny studio and can't afford a real life. "You don't mind, do you?" he asked. Though it wasn't really a question. I was too stunned to argue. For the first time all night, I felt a flicker of hope. I just shook my head. "Good." He smiled, extending a hand. "I'm Bastian, Adit's cousin from Singapore. And you're Rady, the brilliant artist who apparently needs rescuing." Despite the knot of anger in my stomach, I laughed. A real laugh. "That's me. The charity project." "Not anymore," he said, his voice low and conspiratorial. He casually draped an arm over the back of my chair, leaning in as if sharing a secret. The shift was immediate. Across the room, heads began to turn. My aunties, who had been ignoring me, started whispering behind their fans. And then I saw Sari, mid-laugh. Her eyes found us. Her smile didn't just falter, it froze. She excused herself from her group and began making her way toward us, her expensive wedding gown swishing like a warning. "Rati," she said, her voice a little too bright. "I didn't realize you knew Bastian." "We go way back," Bastian said smoothly, his fingers lightly brushing my arm on the table. "Just reconnected recently. You know how it is." Sadi's eyes narrowed. She has always needed to know every detail of my life, mostly so she could judge it. "Really? You never mentioned him." "I like to keep some things to myself," I said, finding my voice. It felt stronger than it had in years. "You know how I am." The look on her face, a perfect storm of frustration and suspicion, was more satisfying than I could have imagined. "Well, how wonderful," she said, the words tasting like poison. She lingered for another moment, searching for a crack in our story. But Bastian's calm, proprietary demeanor gave her nothing. Defeated, she turned and walked away. Bastian leaned in again. "She looks like she just discovered her diamond is a fake," he whispered. "She's not used to me having anything she can't instantly devalue," I admitted. "Then, let's give her something she can't ignore," he said with a wicked smile. And that's how it started. But to understand why this felt like more than just a game, you need to understand my sister. Sari and I grew up in two different worlds inside the same house. She was the one who got perfect grades, went to business school, and married, at it, a wealthy property developer. I was the one who spent my days covered in paint and charcoal dust, creating batik art that my family called a messy hobby. They didn't see the galleries that showed my work, or the small but glowing reviews from art critics. They only saw that I wasn't rich. Sari, especially, took a special kind of pleasure in highlighting my failures. At family dinners, she'd ask, "Are you still playing with your fabrics?" Rati Addit and I are closing on our third investment property. The morning of her wedding, she had called me. "Please try not to look too starving artist today." Okay, Addit's family is very distinguished. I don't want them to think my sister is a charity case. Each word was a carefully aimed dart at my self-worth. This wedding, this public humiliation, was just her grand finale. Back in the ballroom, Sari decided to escalate. During the speeches, after her father-in-law had finished, she took the microphone, her smile radiant, but her eyes fixed on me. "I also want to make a special toast," she announced. "To my sister, Rati. I'm so happy she found someone to bring tonight. We were all getting so worried she'd given up and would just be alone with her paintings." A wave of awkward, polite laughter rippled through the room. The heat of humiliation crept up my neck. I wanted to disappear, but Bastian simply stood up. He walked calmly to the stage and took the microphone from her hand as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "Thank you, Sari," he said, his voice commanding the room's attention. "On Rati's behalf, I appreciate the concern. It's a true honor to be with a woman so completely dedicated to her passion. A passion, I might add. That is getting the international recognition it deserves. In fact, my family's foundation is finalizing the details to be the primary sponsor for her upcoming solo exhibition at the National Gallery Singapore." You could have heard a pin drop. Then, the room erupted in a buzz of impressed murmurs. My jaw was on the floor. Sari stood beside him, completely stunned, her face pale. Addit's wealthy family was now looking at me not with pity, but with respect. With one sentence, Bastian had completely flipped the script. Sari's attempt to paint me as a pathetic failure had backfired spectacularly, making her look petty and small. Later that night, as the wedding wound down, Bastian walked me outside into the cool Jakarta air. "Thank you," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "That was unbelievable. The Singapore Gallery. You really didn't have to invent that." He turned to me, his expression serious. "What makes you think I invented it?" He pulled a sleek business card from his jacket. "My name is Bastian Santoso. I run the Santoso Arts Foundation. I've been following your work for almost a year. Rati, I think you're one of the most original batik artists working today. I came to this wedding hoping to meet you." My head was spinning. This man wasn't just Addit's cousin. He was one of the biggest names in Southeast Asian art philanthropy. "The way your sister treated you tonight," he continued, his eyes holding mine, "just made me more determined. The offer is 100% real. I want to sponsor your exhibition. I want to represent you. I want the world to see what I see." He asked me to dinner the next night to discuss the details. It was supposed to be a professional meeting. But as I looked at the man who had defended me without hesitation, I knew it was already something more. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. The Singapore exhibition was real. The contracts were signed, and my art was suddenly in high demand. Bastian and I started spending more and more time together. Our professional relationship quickly blossoming into a deep, genuine connection. For the first time, I felt truly seen. But Sari's husband, Adit, saw something else, an opportunity. He showed up at my studio one afternoon, his usual slick smile gone, replaced by a cold, calculating look. "Your career is really taking off," he said, walking around my space, looking at my finished pieces, like a wolf sizing up sheep. "It's impressive." "Thank you, Adit," I said cautiously. "The thing is," he said, stopping in front of me, "I'm having a bit of a cash flow problem. My businesses, they need a little help. And you're going to help me." He explained that many of his property deals were a front for a massive money laundering operation. He was under scrutiny and needed to clean 5 billion rupiah. "Fast. You're going to sell me your entire collection," he stated. "Not asked. My shell company will pay you a ridiculously inflated price. The money will be clean. And I get a beautiful tax write-off. That's insane, I whispered, my blood running cold. I would never. Oh, you will, he interrupted, his voice dropping to a menacing hiss. Because if you don't, I will not only destroy your little career, I'll destroy our family's name. You think your father's business was clean? I have documents. Rati. Proof that would send him to prison. Even at his age. You will do this. Or I will burn everything you love to the ground. My world tilted. He was using Sari's own father. My father. As Livrage. And Sari, my sister, was completely oblivious. Married to a monster. Shaking. I called Bastion and told him everything. I expected him to tell me to run. To distance himself from the danger. Instead, he was calm. He thinks you're weak, Bastion said, his voice firm. He thinks he can bully you. We're not going to let that happen. We're going to beat him at his own game. The plan was terrifyingly simple. I agreed to Adit's deal. We set up a meeting at my studio for him to finalize the transaction. He arrived with his lawyer, looking smug and victorious. He insisted Sari come along to witness this wonderful moment of family, supporting family. She beamed, thinking her husband was finally appreciating my art. Okay, I said, my heart pounding as I sat across from them at my work table. Let's just confirm the details one more time, so we are all clear. I had a laptop open in front of me, ostensibly for the banking information. It was also running a recorded video call. So, I began, my voice steady. The 5 billion rupiah will be transferred from the offshore account in the Caymans. And in return, I will issue a receipt for the sale of these 20 paintings to your holding company. Is that correct? Adit chuckled. That's it. See how easy it is to be a team player? He went on, bragging about how the auditors would never suspect a thing. How art was the perfect vehicle for washing dirty money. Sari looked confused, but was smiling along, trying to keep up. That's when Bastion's voice, clear and cold, came through the laptop speakers. Thank you, Adit. We have everything we need. Adit's face went slack. On the screen, the view changed. Bastion was there, sitting in a boardroom. Beside him were his lawyer and 2 men in official uniforms. One of them held up his identification to the camera. Adit Prayoga, the man said, his voice leaving no room for argument. My name is Commissioner Hariono from the Financial Transaction Reports and Analysis Center. You are under federal investigation for money laundering and conspiracy to commit fraud. The color drained from Adit's face. He looked from the screen to me, his eyes filled with disbelief and pure hatred. He had been so sure of his power, so certain of my fear. He never saw me as a threat. Sari just stared, her hand over her mouth as tears streamed down her face. Her perfect husband. To her perfect life. It was all an illusion, built on crime and deceit. In that moment, watching her world crumble, I didn't feel triumph. I just felt a profound sadness for her. 6 months later, Adit was convicted. His assets were seized. His empire dismantled. The trial revealed a web of corruption that shocked the city. Sari, stripped of her wealth and status, divorced him and moved back home. One afternoon, she showed up at my studio door. She looked smaller, humbled. I was jealous of you, she said, her voice barely a whisper. You had a passion. You had something that was yours. I just had things, and I was so cruel to you because of it. I am so sorry. Rati. It was the apology I had waited my whole life to hear. And looking at my sister, truly seeing her for the first time, I forgave her. My solo exhibition in Singapore sold out on opening night. Critics called it a masterpiece. But my greatest success wasn't the fame or the money. It was standing there, holding Bastion's hand, feeling whole and worthy on my own terms. My father was cleared of any wrongdoing, thanks to evidence Bastion's team uncovered. Another lie Adit had used to control me. Sari's wedding was meant to be my ultimate humiliation. Instead, her cruelty put me in the path of a man who saw my worth when I was struggling to see it myself. She tried to cast me as the family failure. But she only succeeded in creating the circumstances for me to meet the love of my life and build the career of my dreams. In her attempt to prove I was nothing, she accidentally gave me everything. If you've ever been made to feel small for daring to be different, remember this story. Your value isn't defined by the people who try to diminish you, but by the beauty you choose to create in the world. If this story resonated with you, like this video and subscribe for more incredible stories of karma and unexpected happy endings. Have you ever had someone's cruelty completely backfire on them? Share your story in the comments below. Sometimes, the universe's best revenge is just letting people's actions lead them to their own downfall.
I didn't expect a thank you, but I didn't expect exile either. It started with a dinner invitation, one of those half-obligated, half-passive-aggressive things my family does when they want something. The house smelled like cinnamon and guilt, and Paige, my sister, was already on her third glass of wine talking about Sedona like it was some kind of holy land. 15,000, Mom said casually like she was reading off a grocery list. It's an energy reset, a spiritual cleanse. You know how much Paige has carried for this family. I didn't respond right away. I just stirred my tea, watching the lemon wedge sink. Dad glanced at me like he was bracing for a problem. You said you were liquidating that savings account, he said. You mentioned it last month. What's the holdup? I looked up. Calm, steady. I didn't fund the retreat, I said. I used the money to start something, a nonprofit. The room went still, like a power outage had cut through every line of polite silence. A nonprofit, Mom repeated like the word itself was sour. For what? Free trauma-informed counseling. For women who can't afford therapy. It's called The Quiet Ground. Paige laughed into her wine glass. You're kidding. I'm not, I said. Dad leaned back his jaw tight. You used family money. It was my money, I corrected. You chose strangers over your sister, Mom said, standing now. You've always needed to be the center of something, even grief. I didn't argue. I knew better. When love becomes performance the moment you stop playing your part, you're not needed anymore. That night, they removed me from the family group chat, blocked me from the retreat RSVP. No calls, no questions, just a silent decision dressed up as spiritual boundaries. I didn't even cry, but I did write one sentence in my notebook before I turned off the light. They didn't want me gone. They wanted me small. It didn't start with the nonprofit, or the retreat, or even the silence after. It started years before that. Slowly, softly, in ways you can't prove, until one day you realize no one says your name at dinner anymore, and no one notices. I was 13 the first time I felt it. Paige had forgotten her flute at school. I had just gotten first place in the state essay competition. Mom walked in holding her car keys, coat still on, and said, Elena, could you warm up leftovers? I need to take your sister back to campus. No one asked about the medal in my backpack. I didn't offer. Later that night, I remember standing at the sink scraping old sauce from the edge of a plate and hearing them laugh in the carport, Paige and Mom. They always laughed like that when I wasn't around. It kept happening. Holidays came and went. Paige got weekend trips and spa gift cards. I got... You understand, right? Paige has been going through a lot. And maybe she had. I don't know, but I had my own lot too. It just didn't look good on Instagram. By college, I stopped bringing things home. Good grades, research assistant jobs, offers to speak at campus events. They never asked, and I never wanted to explain why I wasn't the fun one. When Dad's memory started slipping, I stayed in town. Paige didn't. She was exploring boundaries. I was sorting medication, canceling his Amazon autoship, and trying to convince Mom that forgetting names wasn't just being tired. Mom said I had always been the caretaker. Like that was a compliment. But caretaking in our house was just the polite word for cleaning up after people who never thanked you. There were no slaps, no slammed doors, just 1,000 paper cuts carefully placed over time. I remember birthdays where the cake was vanilla even though I hated vanilla. Cards signed, "Love you girls" with only Paige underlined. And always, always that look Mom gave me when I pushed back even a little. The why can't you just let things go look. So I started letting things go. Expectations, invitations, hope. I stopped offering to help with retreats or fundraisers, stopped trying to explain what my work actually involved, stopped waiting for someone to say thank you when I stayed 3 hours late to fix Dad's medical bills because Paige was recharging in nature. And when I finally told them about the quiet ground, it wasn't to win approval. It was just what I had built, brick by brick, session by session, breath by breath. Mom tilted her head and said, "It's good you're finding purpose. Just don't let it become your whole personality." I smiled, nodded. That's what I always did. Kept the peace, made the tea, bit the inside of my cheek until the words faded away. Because in this family, invisibility wasn't punishment. It was the price of staying allowed in the room. The quiet ground didn't begin as a mission. It started as a coping mechanism, a place where I could breathe without someone asking if I was okay, just so they could say I wasn't. One rented room, a cracked linoleum floor, 2 mismatched chairs, and a folding table I pulled from someone's curb. The first week, no one came. The second week, one woman showed up. Sat on the edge of the chair like she was expecting to be judged for needing a place like this. She didn't talk much, just cried into a paper napkin and said, "I don't want to explain myself again." I told her she didn't have to. That was our beginning. She came back, then brought her neighbor, then a cousin. None of them had insurance. Some didn't have phones. One walked 20 blocks every Thursday in shoes that didn't fit. They didn't say thank you. They said things like, "This is the only place I don't have to apologize for how long I've been stuck." And that was enough. I didn't have donors or partnerships or business cards with raised lettering, but I had a kettle that mostly worked and a shelf of dog-eared books, and people came. I built it between freelance gigs, editing grants, formatting resumes, answering customer service emails under a fake name. Whatever paid just enough to keep the lights on. And when they went off for a week, we met by candlelight. No one complained. That's the thing about survival work. It rarely looks impressive. No branded merchandise, no banner, no yoga on the roof. Just a circle of chairs and the courage to sit inside your own story without flinching. Meanwhile, Paige was soaring. She launched a wellness brand, had a podcast, interviews, ambassadors. She wore linen and quoted Rumi and lit sage on camera while calling it ancestral renewal. Mom watched every video, forwarded me the highlights, sometimes with messages like, "You and your sister are both doing such good work in your own ways." It stung, not because I wanted her to be proud of me, but because she equated candlelight support groups with sponsored content and detox juice, as if impact could be measured in likes. The last time I heard her voice before everything fell apart, it came through voicemail. She said Paige had found a retreat program that would elevate her emotional frequency, but needed help covering the tuition. I had just finished leading a group for survivors of religious abuse. We sat on the floor with peppermint tea and shared the things we weren't allowed to say in childhood. I walked home in the dark and pressed play. "Elena, I know your little project is important to you, but Paige is doing this for all of us. You could really step up here. It's what family does." She called it a little project and still expected me to fund the glow up. The email subject line said "Celebrating Women Who Heal, an evening of resilience and light." At first, I thought it was spam. Then I saw the name, Paige Vale, and just beneath it in gold serif font co-founder The Quiet Ground. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not partner, not collaborator, founder, as if she'd built it herself brick by quiet brick. The flyer was beautiful professional, warm beige and soft lavender tones. Photos from inside the space our circle chairs, our tea shelf, our community wall. I didn't even know anyone had taken pictures. At the bottom there was a quote, "Healing starts where judgment ends. Paige Vale." I had written those exact words on a sticky note last winter, posted on the bulletin board beside the exit door. She had turned it into branding. I tried calling the listed number. No answer. I emailed. Twice. Nothing. Then a few days later, someone showed up at my office. Early morning. Bright-eyed brisk, wearing a flowing cardigan and holding a ring light under one arm. "Hi," she beamed. "We're filming a short promo for the gala. Paige said this space captures the essence of the journey. Would it be okay if we just grabbed a few shots?" She was already halfway through the front door when I blocked her path. Excuse me, what did Paige tell you this was? Her voice stuttered. The community site for her healing initiative. She said you helped anchor the logistics. The logistics. I didn't answer. I didn't explain. I just told her to leave, calmly, firmly, and locked the door behind her. That evening, I checked our nonprofit email again. A new message was sitting at the top of the inbox. Attached a copy of Paige's grant application to the Wellness Equity Fund. The cover page had our logo pixelated from being copied too many times. 14 pages of budget projections, event programming, and press language. My name was there too, not as founder, not even as co-director, just program support. E. Vale Independent Contractor. I scrolled to the signature block. There it was, Paige's name signed in lavender ink. She had requested $25,000 for my work, for our space. And no one had said a word to me. Not Mom, not Paige, not the funders, not the organizers. They hadn't ignored me. They had absorbed me, folded my life's work into her storyline like it had always belonged there. That night, I opened a bottle of grocery store red and drank it straight from the bottle. No music, no lights. Just me, a locked door, and the growing clarity that they hadn't returned because they cared. They had returned because I had finally become useful. I didn't decide to go right away. At first, I told myself it didn't matter, that I had better things to do than walk into a room full of people who didn't know my name at an event built on work I had bled for. But then the confirmation email came through. The grant had been approved, $25,000 issued under Paige's name for a program she did not create. That's when I stopped waiting for clarity. There was no misunderstanding, no crossed wires, no innocent mix-up. This was theft draped in wellness language and pastel font, so I made a plan. Not dramatic, just precise. I gathered everything: emails, original documents, screenshots, timestamps. I forwarded them to the Grant Foundation, to the venue coordinator, to a lawyer I knew from a pro bono network. Then I ordered a ticket. The gala was held at the Parkhurst Ballroom, one of those over-renovated landmarks turned event space where you can smell the money in the wallpaper. The lighting was soft rose. The tables were round and overdressed. Everyone wore cream or charcoal. I came in quiet, head-down seat near the back. I didn't need a spotlight. I just needed them to see the truth. Paige took the stage right on schedule. She looked perfect, flowy dress, barefoot in a way that said expensive freedom. Her hair curled like a woman too grounded to care about approval. The room leaned in when she spoke. This journey, she said hand to chest, didn't begin with ambition. It began with ache. I created the quiet ground to honor the women who never got to speak. My throat tightened. Someone near me whispered, "She's so authentic." She wasn't even nervous. That's what stung most. Then, right before the award presentation, a man in a dark suit walked across the stage. No introduction, no fanfare, just one sealed envelope. Paige took it without looking up, still smiling for the room. She opened it mid-sentence as if it were a note from the lighting crew. Her eyes flickered across the page. Once. Twice. Her mouth froze mid-word. The screen behind her, set to loop testimonials, sputtered, then glitched, then changed. A document came into focus. It was her grant proposal, unedited, unredacted, 14 pages. Slide 1, the false team list. My name listed beneath hers. Slide 2, our tea room with the caption, Paige's original trauma-informed design. Slide 3, a screenshot of my original email to the state office, dated a year before she claimed to have envisioned the program. There was no sound, no coughing, no clinking of forks, only the hum of the projector and Paige's breathing shallow, broken, exposed. And then a voice from the crowd. "I can verify that email," someone said. It was Professor Levingston, my trauma ethics advisor from grad school. I supervised Elena's first pilot. This was never Paige's to present. Silence turned, not sharply, not like an attack. It shifted like weight sliding off a table, slow and irreversible. Paige tried to recover. Said something about shared inspiration, about the work evolving beyond ownership, but no one clapped. The mic cut out. The host stepped in with a laugh that didn't reach his eyes, thanking everyone for the beautiful energy. They pivoted to a raffle. For a chakra-infused water bottle. People clapped again, but not for her. I stayed in my seat. Still. Steady. I didn't need a speech. The truth had finally spoken on its own, and for once they were all listening. I didn't stay for dessert. Didn't wait for the awkward group photo or the vegan tiramisu served in recycled glass jars. I left before the lights came back up, before anyone remembered I was there. Outside, the street was quiet. My car was parked 3 blocks away, too far for heels, but I didn't mind. The night air felt like rinsing off something that had been stuck to my skin too long. When I got home, I turned on one light and left the rest off. The quiet ground was exactly how I'd left it, still calm, soft lit from a hallway lamp I bought for $10 at a yard sale. I walked past the chairs, the bookshelf, the small basket of wool socks for clients who forgot theirs. Everything we'd built was still standing, still intact. That meant more than any award ever could. I checked the inbox. There it was, an email from the Wellness Equity Fund, funding suspended, review initiated. They thanked me for my documentation and requested a meeting to understand how the misrepresentation occurred. I made tea and let the kettle whistle a little longer than necessary. Just before bed, my phone buzzed, a message from my mother. We didn't know she lied. Paige told us you weren't ready for public responsibility, that you didn't want your name on anything. I stared at the text, and in a moment of complete clarity, I realized she meant that. They really believed it. They believed I'd hand over everything I'd built quietly and visibly, just like always. I didn't respond. I closed my phone, placed it face down on the bookshelf, and opened my notebook instead. I wrote down a sentence I'd heard in group the week before from a woman who had never said much until that night. It's not that I stopped wanting them to understand. I just stopped needing them to. I underlined it twice. That's where I was now. Not angry, not vindicated, just done. Done with shrinking so someone else could stretch. Done with being the backstage girl in my own story. The next morning, I opened the front door and let in the early light. 2 new names were already on the calendar, both first-time clients, both women who had found us by accident. There are no accidents in healing, just the quiet decision to walk through a door that no one else opened for you. And this time, the door was mine. 2 weeks passed. The inbox quieted. The hashtags faded. Paige hadn't posted since the gala. The apology never came. But a message did. Hey, things have been rough. Any chance I could film something at the nonprofit? Just one short reel. For context. To show I'm still doing the work. Still doing the work. Like it had never been mine. I didn't respond. I didn't delete it either. Instead, I got up, walked to the front door, and took down the old Welcome All sign. Not because it wasn't true, but because it needed clarity. I replaced it with something smaller. A plain wooden plaque. No script font. No pastel colors. Just 6 words hand-carved, sanded at the edges. This space is not for optics. That afternoon, I hosted a new circle. 3 women. No introductions. Just tea, a breath, and the courage to sit still. One of them looked around the room and said, I don't know why this place feels safe, but it does. I smiled. Didn't explain. Because truth doesn't need a logo, or a reel, or a forgiveness tour. It just needs time, and quiet, and someone who refuses to let the story be rewritten. I used to beg for love that came with conditions. Now I open the door, and if they ask if this is the quiet ground, I say yes. But I don't say who built it. I let the stillness answer for me. They asked me to take the family photos, said I had a steady hand. You're always so reliable. Mom smiled, slipping the strap of the camera around my neck. Try to get everyone before dessert. I looked down at the list she handed me, Group Shots Candid's one big reunion photo in front of the fountain. Printed in bold at the top, Langford Family 2024 Reunion, hosted by Olivia Langford and guests. Guests. I guess that's what I was now. They hadn't even given me a seat. The tables were arranged in a wide semicircle on the back lawn, crisp white linens catching the afternoon sun. I counted them 9 full rounds, 8 seats each, all with place cards in careful cursive. Not a single one had my name. "Hey, Grace," Uncle Ron called out, lifting his wine glass. "Can you get a shot of this table? Olivia really knocked it out of the park, huh?" I nodded and raised the camera, framing them like strangers. I'd RSVP'd early. I'd flown in. I'd even brought a gift, a hand-bound album I'd spent weeks compiling, full of scanned photos from past reunions. I didn't see it anywhere on the welcome table. I did see Olivia in a linen jumpsuit and block heels, walking with purpose between guests. She was glowing. Of course she was. The golden child always knew where the light was. "Can you believe she got us this resort?" Aunt Margie whispered behind me. Her connections really came through. The corner of my mouth twitched. Connections. Right. I turned toward the garden path that led to my assigned room. It wasn't in the main lodge or even the guest villas. It was a converted maintenance shed behind the pool house. Temporary staff quarters, the clerk had called it apologetically. Room 12B, no view, no toiletries. But it did have a thin set of twin beds and a stack of folded towels, the kind you'd find in employee housing. I sat on the edge of the mattress, still holding the camera. They hadn't forgotten me. They'd remembered just enough to use me. And somehow that was worse. I wasn't always the one behind the camera. There are photos. Faded, overexposed snapshots from the 80s, where I'm front and center, gap-toothed, muddy-kneed, clutching a papier-mâché volcano or a spelling bee ribbon. In those, Mom's hand rests on my shoulder. Her smile is real if distant. Then Olivia was born. 4 years younger, she came with glitter and praise. Wide eyes, perfect curls, a laugh that echoed like wind chimes. People bent toward her naturally. They always have. I was 9 when Mom first used the phrase, "let her have her moment." It was my piano recital. I had practiced Clair de Lune for weeks. Olivia, 5 at the time, interrupted halfway through to do a twirl in front of the living room. Everyone clapped. I finished the piece in silence. At 10, I brought home a handmade card for Mother's Day watercolor and pressed lavender. Olivia gave her a song. Off-key, forgettable. Mom cried. "You girls are so different," she'd say, looking at us like we were flavors she couldn't quite reconcile. Grace is steady. Olivia is sunshine. I learned what to be. Helpful, uncomplicated, quiet. By high school, I stopped asking them to come to my debates. Olivia was always in something theater cheer some club Mom had to bake for. I once overheard Dad tell a neighbor, "Grace, she's our grounded one. Doesn't need much attention." That wasn't true. I just learned how to go without it. College was a scramble of scholarships, dorm jobs, late-night tutoring sessions. I didn't come home for breaks. I couldn't afford to financially or emotionally. Olivia stayed local, took a gap year, dated musicians, artists, flirted with acting. When she posted a moody black and white portrait captioned, "Not all who wander are lost," Mom shared it on Facebook with my brilliant baby. When Dad's consulting firm collapsed in 2010, it was me they called. Their voices trembled on the phone. "The house might go. We just need a buffer, just a little help." I wired $5,000 that night, then another 5 the next month. Over a year, I sent nearly $30,000, skipped vacations, deferred my student loans. They kept the house. No one mentioned it again. Later, when Mom had a minor health scare, a word she liked to use like a leash, she hinted at hospital bills piling up. Olivia had just gotten engaged to a tech startup guy named Matthew. She wanted to recreate Grandma's ring, but didn't have the funds. 2 weeks later, I sent $15,000. I got a thank you card. Signed, "Love Mom," no return address. The ring showed up on Olivia's Instagram a month later. Oval cut set in platinum captioned, "Family Traditions Reborn." No one tagged me. When I asked gently just once about the medical expenses, Mom replied, "I thought you gave it freely." Then added, "It's not like you have children to worry about." That's how it always went. My usefulness was mentioned only when needed. My silence was expected. My stability assumed. I was the one who remembered birthdays, who sent thoughtful gifts, who paid for Aunt Rachel's surgery when her insurance lapsed. The one who organized a virtual memorial when Grandpa died during the lockdown. I wasn't invited to the in-person gathering they held later. There were restrictions, Olivia said. You wouldn't have wanted to risk it. That was the year I stopped sending holiday cards. No one noticed. I moved cities, launched my own business. Quietly, deliberately, I began acquiring boutique properties in distressed markets, hotels, inns, beach houses with potential. The Langford family had always vacationed at the coast. Same place, same porch, same traditions. That resort had come up for sale 6 months ago. I recognized the name instantly. Drove out alone, walked the grounds, smelled the mildew in the curtains, saw the sagging deck rails. It was tired, forgotten, just like I'd been. I bought it anyway, closed through a holding company, rebranded discreetly, began renovations. And when I saw the family email from Olivia, guess what? I got us the perfect venue for this year's reunion. Trust me, you're going to love it. I said nothing. Let them book it. Let them gather on ground they thought was theirs. I didn't need an invitation. I already had the keys. Success came quietly. There was no breakthrough moment, no champagne cork or viral article. Just years of showing up, saving, learning when to speak and when to let other people take credit, letting my name stay small while my value grew behind the scenes. I lived alone in a top-floor apartment I never showed on social media. The view wasn't dramatic, just a narrow stretch of skyline framed by telephone wires, but it was mine, paid in full. I traveled when I wanted to, worked when I chose, took meetings in quiet cafes, negotiated contracts in my own name, bought small buildings others had written off, turned them, held some, let others go. I never told anyone in the family what I did. The last time I tried years ago, Mom blinked and said, "Oh, like Airbnb?" I said yes. It was easier. I heard Olivia had started a lifestyle blog, then a podcast, then some kind of consulting. She posted selfies in airports and wrote captions about gratitude. Her voice was everywhere, even when she wasn't saying anything. Mine stayed where it had always been, off to the side, working. When the property listing came across my desk, I recognized it before I read the address. Seacliff Grove Inn, once a family staple. Beige clapboard siding, rocking chairs on every porch, a fountain that never quite worked. The place with mosquito bites, board games, and the scent of low tide. Where Dad grilled too much corn and Mom insisted Olivia had the voice of an angel during beach karaoke. I hadn't been back in over a decade. The resort was in distress financially, structurally, cosmetically. Years of neglect under new management, occupancy down, reviews sour. The owners were desperate. I bought it in silence, not for nostalgia, not for revenge. I bought it because I could. A shell company handled the paperwork. I kept the staff, approved modest renovations, new linens, fresh paint, better lighting. I didn't change the name. I didn't need to. I told no one, not even when I saw the group booking come through. Langford Family Reunion, 42 guests, submitted by Olivia Langford. Email signature, Olivia Langford. Lifestyle curator and event strategist. That made me laugh. Just once, sharp and low. The staff prepped the space, upgraded a few rooms, offered the family a promotional package through my firm's hospitality division. Olivia accepted. Called it a favor from a friend in the industry. I let her believe that. I even ensured she got the suite with the balcony, the good light, and the wine fridge. She would expect that. She always did. I didn't ask for a room. I didn't call ahead. I simply showed up luggage in hand and watched the front desk clerk pause as my name lit up the screen. Her eyes widened slightly. Ms. Langford. Of course. She handed me the keys to room 12B. Temporary staff housing, 2 twin beds, 1 window. I nodded, said thank you, and walked toward the back of the property. No protest, no correction. Let them play their parts. Let them think I was there by accident. I arrived at the welcome dinner 10 minutes early. No one noticed. The courtyard was dressed in fairy lights, rented drapery, and thin optimism. Paper lanterns bobbed above the buffet tables. Folded menus bore Olivia's signature in looping gold script. A cousin I hadn't seen in years greeted me with vague warmth, the kind reserved for distant aunts or tolerated exes. I returned the smile, said nothing. Aunt Margie waved me over to rearrange folding chairs. I did. A niece handed me a stack of napkins and whispered, "Aunt Olivia said you know how to fold these the fancy way." I didn't, but I nodded. My name wasn't on the place cards. Again. I found a seat at the overflow table tucked near the back beside the restroom sign and a struggling potted fern. No centerpiece, no candle. Across the lawn, Olivia twirled in a blush silk maxi dress, hugging relatives, fielding compliments, curating photos over her shoulder. Every few minutes, someone raised a glass to her. She planned this entire weekend. She negotiated the group rate herself. Her taste, it's just impeccable. I cut into my chicken, chewed slowly. Midway through the meal, a staff member approached the head table. He was young, nervous, holding a clipboard. I recognized him from the resort orientation packets. He whispered something to Olivia, who blinked, then said, "That's not what we discussed." The labels were supposed to be in rose gold, not silver. The server apologized. She waved him away. A few minutes later, another staffer approached me. She looked vaguely familiar. Front desk, maybe housekeeping. She paused beside my table, eyes scanning a printed list. Then she leaned down. "Ms. Langford. Just wanted to confirm tomorrow's brunch layout. 6 long tables, printed programs, no alcohol until after speeches." I glanced up. "That's fine." She nodded. "We've added your name to the staff directory. Any changes, just text me directly." Then she walked away. No one at my table reacted. No one had heard her. But I sat back just slightly and let the weight of that moment settle. They still had me listed in the system, not as a guest, not as family. As the owner. They didn't know. But the walls did. The floorboards did. The windows, the locks, the contract that paid for every chair, every napkin, every lantern they now called beautiful, they all knew. And tomorrow, so would everyone else. Brunch was held in the garden pavilion. Soft jazz played over the speakers. The tables were dressed in ivory linen with eucalyptus runners. Centerpieces of white peonies stood in crystal vases. A backdrop near the stage read the Langford Legacy in looping cursive. I arrived late on purpose. Most of the family was already seated, filling coffee cups, flipping through printed programs that Olivia had designed. She stood at the podium near the stage, beaming as the event manager handed her a clipboard. Matthew, her fiancé, trailed behind her like a well-trained shadow. They looked like a magazine spread. I slipped into a chair near the rear. No one noticed. The manager tapped the microphone. "Before we begin, we'd like to thank the venue for going above and beyond and hosting this special weekend. The staff, the presentation, the coordination, every detail has been exceptional. Polite applause." He continued, "And most of all, we're honored to recognize our newest partner and majority shareholder, the person who made this weekend possible." He turned slightly, raised his glass. "To Ms. Grace Langford." Silence. Chairs creaked. Forks paused mid-air. A few heads turned toward the back. My name hung in the air, suspended like dust. I stood. Not quickly. Just enough to be seen. Olivia blinked. Her mouth opened, then closed. Mom stared at me like I'd spoken in a language she didn't understand. I didn't raise my glass. I didn't smile. I walked slowly toward the stage heels, quiet on stone. The manager stepped aside. Olivia remained frozen, still holding the clipboard. I stopped near the microphone, didn't touch it. "I hope you're enjoying brunch," I said. My voice carried not loud, but clear. "I'm glad everyone made it this year. It's a beautiful space, excellent food, good light for photos." A few nervous chuckles. I looked around the pavilion. When I bought this property 6 months ago, I didn't know the family would return here. But when I saw the group booking come through under Olivia's name, I approved it. I turned to her. "At a discount." Olivia flushed. Matthew reached for her elbow, but she pulled away. "I didn't change the name." I continued. "Didn't need to. I just paid for the things that matter, the foundation, the roof, the staff, the chairs." I let the silence stretch. For a while, I wondered if I should say something, if I should clarify my role. But then I realized you already had a version of me that worked better. The helper, the extra hand, the one with the camera. Mom's face shifted confusion, then something sharper. She opened her mouth. I raised my hand. "I'm not angry," I said. "I just don't want to be invisible anymore." I stepped back, left the microphone untouched. As I turned, I saw Claire, my cousin, watching me from 2 tables over. She nodded. Just once. It was enough. I walked out of the pavilion without a word, past the fountain, past the long buffet line, past the chalkboard sign that read, "Welcome home." The air smelled like citrus and apology. Behind me, I heard nothing. No footsteps, no applause. Only the sound of silverware being quietly set down. I didn't go back to the pavilion. I walked past the check-in desk, past the empty front porch where rocking chairs creaked gently in the breeze. My suitcase was already packed. I had planned to leave after brunch regardless of what happened. The valet didn't ask for my ticket. He recognized me now. As I stepped toward the car, I heard footsteps behind me. Grace. I didn't turn. Grace, wait. Mom's voice. I stopped but didn't face her. She came up beside me out of breath, holding her purse like a shield. Her blouse was rumpled, one earring missing. She looked smaller in daylight. "You didn't have to make a scene," she said quietly. "You could have told us privately." I kept my gaze on the gravel drive. "I did tell you," I said. "Every time I helped, every time I stayed quiet. That was me telling you." She swallowed. "This weekend was for family." I nodded. "And I'm family." She hesitated. "I don't know what you want me to say. You don't need to say anything." I opened the car door. She touched my arm. "You embarrassed Olivia." I looked at her then. She embarrassed herself. I got in, closed the door. Through the window, I watched her take a step back. Her mouth moved, but no words came. After a moment, she turned and walked away, not quickly, not defiantly. Just slowly, like someone who wasn't sure where to go. The car pulled forward, past the garden where Olivia posed for someone else's camera now, past the sign that still bore our name. The resort would host other families, other reunions, other people who understood how to see each other fully. But I wouldn't be among them. Not anymore. I didn't leave angry. I left full of memory, of clarity, of silence that finally belonged to me. Maybe you've been there too. Standing at the edge of a family you kept trying to belong to. Maybe you've handed over time, money, years just to stay in the frame. And maybe, like me, you learned that walking away doesn't mean you gave up. It means you stopped waiting to be erased. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who understands. Someone who's had to build peace from silence. And if you're still finding your voice, know this. You are not alone, and you were never invisible, not here, not to us.